Well, welcome in, everyone. We are doing it a little bit different tonight. We have some parents contribute some questions, some things that they've been wondering, wanting answers to. And so tonight we're going to hit some of those, Phil.
All right.
We talked through it before, and we're not going to dodge it. Parents, maybe do some research, and so we got parents, players, coaches sending in real questions, and we're going to talk about them. No filters, because if we don't talk it through, the kids are the ones that pay the price.
Might be some hurt feelings tonight, Cass.
You know what, man? But before we piss everybody off, let's shout out our sponsors, the Antler Cafe, the Brunch Spot, and Affordable Haulers, because they make this a whole lot easier to get off the ground. But let's get into it, man. All right. Number one question. I think this one came out of Dallas. Who has the biggest impact on athletes reaching the next level? The parents submitted. Is it trainers with cone drills versus real game prep? Is it coaches opening doors versus boxing kids in the system? Or is it in the middle? Sometimes the most miseducated piece can be the parents, And so, Phil, I'm just going to start off, man, because, we scroll through the social media, man, and I think trainers get the biggest hit from social media, from parents, because they think they've got the answers on who the best trainer is. And for some reason, people lose focus on a lot of cone drills. Nothing can supplant real games. But here's the catch. Are you playing real games within your training? I can only speak for the doghouse on this, but I know every session ends up with 1-on-1, full court, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. So that how you feel on that trainers topic?
Wow. Well, look, the trainers part is going to be integral, but again, that trainer still has to match the student, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because not every trainer's for every student. That from the doghouse.
Yes.
Everybody ain't built for the doghouse. So that's going to play an important part is, coupling that ball player with the right trainer. But, part of that, like Kev, like you said, the trainer taking the big hit. Going on that, look, I got to tell you, sometimes parents just step overboard, or with their expectations, or B, how they want to influence, be it the trainer or the coach,
Yeah.
Or the system. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, and we'll talk about the system in a little bit.
Okay, yeah, but of course, look, that trainer nowadays, especially Cav. If you don't have a trainer, if you aren't training and doing what you need to do, I don't know who's going to pick you up. I don't know who you're for.
And we can talk about, everybody knows the doghouse is home for me, but I know Greg Bowie with G3, I believe, he does really well. Our buddy Tim Springer's been on a couple of times. I like what he does, and then Lou Martinez over HD Toros. He does a really good job of getting kids ready to play the offensive side of the ball, and hard work over here with Blue Man. They're continuously putting kids, 1 or 2 kids a year into college, and they have a track record. So I think part of it goes back to this, Phil. Whenever I got everybody knows I got my legs amputated, my leg amputated. You know, I didn't go looking for the guy that didn't have any experience.
I know, right?
You know, I mean, I did my research on who had the most successful surgeries.
Yeah, I
You
was
know,
insulted, Kev, because I was cutting steaks that night. You could have come with me.
you know what? Hey, we could have. But you know, man, I think parents try. I think parents work and do the best that they can. I just think that the landscape of recruiting, and we'll talk about this later on, the landscape has really changed. And you know, parents sometimes are meeting with trainers and coaches or their trusted circle who's giving them the best information that they can, and it's just outdated. You know, and I think, you know, we're seeing you know, Kendrick Perkins getting out there and being very outspoken about if you're serious about basketball, you're going to go to a prep school, you know, because, and so, you know, I was talking to a good friend, Jay Fry, about that because I can't imagine leaving the traditional high school experience,
Right,
you know, and
right.
just this week, uh, we'll talk about, you know, our friend Marcus Zeeley that we had on at one time, who committed to Iowa State. Well, he just left to go to a prep school with OTE. And then you've seen us, we've talked about Dusty Clemens and Wyatt Clemens.
Right.
Wyatt just left, and now he's enrolled at Link Academy, you know, they're all big time factors, and they're all, you know, but I know for a fact, when we're talking about Wyatt, like that family's committed to plan A.
Right.
You know, there's not so much a plan B. Now he's going to get his education, of course, but you know, you can take the top 10 ranked players in the state of Texas, and we can eliminate 4 of them. You know, one because Billy White went ahead and reclassed up, and he's at SMU. Christian Gibson, #1 player in the state, leaves and goes over to a prep school in Tennessee. And there's two other Atkins, and he's over at Prolific Prep out in California. You know, so these guys are seeing something, you know, that maybe all of us haven't read the scenery yet. You know, and so that's one of the things I want to keep digging into, because then, you know, we talked about the coaches, we talked about the systems. You know, I can speak on behalf on Spencer Valley Ranger football. I know it's a football program, but I think Larry Hill, they won their first state championship, does a good job of projecting players and still winning ball games. You know, and I think that's what parents have to understand. The high school coach's job is what? Is to win ball games.
Right.
And he's going to win ball games the way he knows how to win ball games. So even at that point, you as a parent have to step back and say, where's my kid going to go to high school at? You know, we can point, you know, Judson, traditional powerhouse, still has players this year that are college bound. People forget that Wagner, Reggie Clark over there, has had a kid signed to play next level every year that he's been at Wagner High School, and that's the only coach in San Antonio that could say that. You know, and then you look over at Brennan and the success that they're having, Harlan,
Wow.
the success that they're having,
Yeah.
John Jay. So then that leads us into another piece, right? Because now we're talking about programs that are having success, but we're also talking about programs that have preferred trainers.
Yeah.
You know? And so we're going to talk about alignment later on, but you know, that's huge because it may be as far back as the relationships, you know, the relationships between JC and John Jay High School. You know, there's always kids from John Jay that are going through there. You know, Brennan and Felix, Brennan and Ray Briggs. You know, then we talk about Steel Girls and Big Greg Bowie. You know, we talk about the Judsons and going to Boo Man. So I don't know that it's so much. I think it's more relationships. And as we see more people come into the city that are professing or proclaiming to be trainers, and I'm not disrespecting anybody. I'm just saying I'm not sending nobody to somebody that I don't know. So,
well, therein goes to my question to you, Kev. You know, just how problematic has it been? Because you've been in the scouting game for quite a while. So, how problematic has it been, or do you feel it will get with people thinking that you're maybe trying to steer a particular player to some other trainer or the doghouse in particular or something?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't care, because if you ask me where I think the best place is going to be, I'm going to always talk about home. Now, but that's why I spoke about those other trainers.
Yeah.
Because there are quality trainers in San Antonio outside of the doghouse, outside of Bowie, outside of Springer. There's quality. I just know those guys and feel comfortable recommending those guys, because another piece of that, man, is how far away those facilities are.
Yeah.
In the city, because we're talking about the 7th largest city in the country. You know, so yes, there's going to be good places even I don't know about, right? But I don't worry about that, because if you go to, you know, that's one reason, Phil, why I don't charge people for advice, because if you don't like it,
right,
don't use it. You know, if you go to this trainer, he's not for you. Cool. You know, there's a list of people. You know, and people have their different tastes. They have their different. I grew up inner city, so JC style really fits with what I'm comfortable with, because you know he loves him. You know he's going to push the fire out of him, and he's old school. You know, and he's going to push it to the limits, which some people don't like being pushed to the limits. And that goes back to parents. All these parents want their kids to be a dog, right? But how are dogs created? They're created through adversity. They're created through the process. And how many people are stopping their kids from going through that process by their interventions or by talking to coaches? And that's how coaches end up with teams that don't really need them, in my opinion. You know? So that's kind of my piece.
Well, you know, sometimes, Kev, that kind of interference gets coaches not wanting your kid there to begin with. You know, it will be a working partnership, but like anything else, it's how you approach it. You have to understand, this coach has a job to do with other people's kids too.
Yes.
Not just trying to get your kid from point A to point Z.
Yeah.
Because that's really not what his thing is with your kid. His thing is to integrate your kid into his system to try to have the most productive team that he can get.
You know, and I agree with you 100%. And I think it's more about, it's not one group. It's not the trainers. It's not the coaches. It's not the parents. It's not one group. It's alignment and getting your kid aligned in what they need. And it takes planning. You can't just pop up and say, oh, we're in 8th grade. Now we're, you know, it does happen. I mean, it does, but it's very rare, you know. And at the end of the day, Phil, college coaches care less about how many trophies.
Yeah.
They don't give a damn about a trophy.
Right.
They want skill, they want film, and they want your kid to have character. And sometimes people miss that because they're so focused on their child. They're so focused on getting Johnny shots or getting Johnny's this, Johnny's that. And so that's it, man.
Yeah, Kev, sometimes they blow the opportunity for their kid.
Yes.
And you spoke on it, character. What did we hear from our interview with the great Chris Wright out at the Langston University? They have a character coach who's been with them his run at Langston. And this guy happens to be a pastor. I'm not trying to get in on any type of affiliation there, but I'm just letting you know that he's also a former, just inducted into the Hall of Fame there also, but a high character guy. And he and Chris met right from the beginning, and he's got a character coach that works with his players and does extremely well. So character, they are definitely looking for high character kids. But Kev, besides character, academics, people, something that people are letting slip on because you think Johnny's an ace ball player. He's the best thing going since sliced bread. But if those grades aren't there,
and we're going to give a plug right now, but that goes back to that episode of the Scholarship Revolution on the Truth in the Trenches podcast, which you can find on Buzzsprout or Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. What's funny, man, is that podcast is loaded with so much needed information that we're giving for free. And people are going to go pay somebody to get told the same information they could get on that podcast for free. Blows my mind, man. But you know what? It is what it is.
What would you say it again, Cal?
Oh, yeah. The Truth in the Trenches podcast. Truth in the Trenches on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout. It's there. It's free. Go check it out. But before we head to the next question, Phil, I do want to say this. Parents need to look at who they're trusting for advice right now. And as a person that they're getting advice from, is it truth or is it a sales pitch? Because that's a dangerous slope right now, man, because people are pitching things to kids and to parents that they can't deliver on. In this day and age, if you're telling kids, hey, I can get you that D1 ride, shit, because there's so much that goes into that now.
Right.
And that's my big thing for parents. Just go and evaluate who you're getting the information from, All right. Question number 2. This one's interesting. Why don't high school coaches, AAU coaches, and trainers work together? You know what, man?
Hey, Ken. Can I kind of put a story in perspective and just tell them something about me and you? Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to imagine that this program is the team. It's the team, and Kevin's the coach, and I'm the trainer. This is how it goes. Kev first meets me. The first time he meets me, we sat down. We aren't sitting together 2 minutes. He looks at me and he says, I don't think we can do a show together.
That's a fact.
And he said, because you're an alpha male and I'm an alpha male. And I looked at Kev and I said, that's exactly why we can do a show together, because I stay in my lane. You know what you do and you do what you do, and that's not what I do. I do this. So what we understood then and understand is that this show, which would be the the student, that's what we've got to work toward to make sure that it's the best product that it can be. So, regardless of the testosterone rolling,
Yeah.
you can work together if you really want that synergy. But people have to realize that certain people have different roles, and you've got to abide by those.
And that's a very factual conversation that we did have. And why aren't adults in more alignment? I think that you look within the city right now, and you could really say like the future is in pretty good alignment with their trainers, the future organization, and the schools that predominantly feed into that program, right? That's one case of alignment. Now, that group has been together for a while. I don't know how long. I just know for a long time, right? And even at the end, you had Mason Thomas, you had Mark Anthony. Um, there's another one that went and used a different organization for the summer before their senior year. And I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. I'm saying that's what happened. And so I think whenever you look out across the city, and it's ego, a lot of it, and it's territorial,
Right.
And that's the biggest piece of it all, because you look around bigger cities, and in Houston and Dallas, Chicago, they have built-in systems of collaboration. I know that like in Houston, experience with A-Leaf and A-Leaf Clovers, uh, the Raptors, Houston Raptors. That's all A-Leaf, and so A-Leaf has three huge high schools, and those programs are symbiotic with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I think that just kind of gets it to where it needs to be. Like the kids getting pulled three different ways.
Right.
And so adults need to come to the table and talk about it. Until they do, there won't be alignment. There'll be this trainer doing this, and it's not bad to have multiple trainers at that. I don't particularly like it, but that's to each his own. You know, but let's just think: what would happen if three adults in a kid's life sat down once a season just for their alignment? You know, uh, because a lot of it could really be down to two. Because a lot of your coaches are also trainers, say like behind the scenes with Tony Crocker and CJ Miles, right? And then my mind went blank. But just so if they sat and talked with the parents and the high school coaches of that particular student, how wonderful would that be? But I don't know if that will ever happen. You know, um, because I hear trainers say they have to unteach what the coaches taught.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that's frustrating for me because I I think I grew up in an area that was very aligned in our town, in our city of Baton Rouge, and so it was always a perpetual step forward. Wherever we went, and it's rough because these kids don't get that, and I don't know. I just I feel bad for the kids because the kids are the ones that wind up losing. You know.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this one came from right here in San Antonio. All right. Why isn't the business side of basketball being taught earlier? The parents submitted. They were talking about NIL, transfer portal, and now that would equal high school and AAU being an internship, right? And frankly, I agree with him. But does the NIL training, when does that get put into place? Because we already have misguided in the fact that only 2% of high school athletes are getting rid of Division I full ride scholarship. So roughly a little bit more, 10% maybe, 8% maybe, or because 7% is the top of the highest percentage that's going to make it to college anyway. So that piece, I did do a little research, and I did reach out to a couple of professionals to have them come on at some point to talk about NIL more in depth. Because the other piece, Phil, I don't think many people understand, like adults.
Yeah.
Now we know because of inside information that several of these San Antonio athletes throughout the last few years have gotten sizable NIL deals. But those are in, I won't say small circles, because remember, again, we're only talking about a small circle, right?
Yeah.
And so we have people within our circle, that handle that. I'm not part of that piece.
Yeah.
But
Everything gets complicated when you introduce money into a situation.
yeah,
I mean, everything from hold it. He should have got more.
yeah,
Had you done this? Had you done that? So there can always be something to cause some fracturing or some type of grumbling behind the scenes
mm-hmm.
or out front. Um, Anytime money is introduced into a situation. So by it trickling down and, coming in and look, it's only going to get to be more and
Oh yeah.
more.
Well,
And
then you got the collective bargaining pieces coming into it.
yeah,
So that's going to be another set of rule changes, But see, that goes back. All right. So the second piece of that was high school and AAU being seen as internships.
yeah,
So now we go back to Kendrick Perkins' statement that the real ones are going to prep school, and it flows right into that conversation piece I was having with that parent, about high school being an internship is really going to be at that prep school. Because I talked to a young man that just started prep school, and I said, how much basketball are you doing a day? And he said, well, we do 2 hours weightlifting, conditioning, and then we go to class, and then we're on the court from noon to 5. So you're talking about 8 hour day
yeah,
in the gym,
yeah. And look, it's not as if we haven't been introduced to players going to prep school. I mean, we can look at the Kobe's and the KGs and things of that nature. But when we, at least in my mind, when it was you going to prep school, I mean, you're already the star that people have heard about here or
Right.
there. But now, it seems that, I'll put it this way. Say you had that 5-star. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That was it. But it seems to me like more like, you get you have that 4-star
Yeah.
going prep and doing so. So, like I said, time to change is an interesting situation.
Well,
A
I
lot
see.
of influence.
I think what's been really nice to see, okay, is we can talk about Kingston.
Yes.
Kingston still got to U of H, never had to leave, right?
Right. That's
Now-
what I wanted to talk about when you mentioned about Brennan, because Kev, I don't know about. I think you did say this, but it would have been hard for me to think about leaving that
Mm-hmm.
school environment, and especially if I'm going to end up going all across country or
Yeah.
something to play. Back in that day time period, no, I couldn't have done that. No.
So but let's think now. The class of 26.
Yeah.
Okay. Donovan Chris commits to UTEP.
Right.
Talent Todd commits to Austin P. No, yeah, Austin P. Trayvon Clark commits to UT Arlington, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Logan and Jamil both committed to A&M Kingsville
Right.
and Missouri S&T. All right, none of those guys had to leave. So let's focus on that as well. Like Trey played a good enough, played a great schedule with Wagner. They normally go deep in the playoffs. Brennan's been doing their piece.
Right.
And you look over at Harlan. You got Josiah Jones, got Big 12 offers. You got Amani Francis, who's got, I haven't kept up with his offer list, but I know it's growing, because he's added more to his game. You got Elijah Williams. Now, he is an NBA son, but he's
Right.
going to TMI. And I'll give you the private school,
Mm-hmm.
And then we talk about the Almuda twins up at Parish Episcopal in Dallas. They've got Mountain West Conference offers. They got Pac-12 and then or ACC, and then you got Hudson Lucas in that group. They got 4 kids on that team that have an offer to Air Force. You go look at Mason Thomas.
Kev, if I could just interrupt you just a bit.
Mm.
Got an offer to Air Force. We're still back and talking academics, people.
Yeah, you're right. But we're gonna build on that because Mason Thomas, today's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, will leave to go on his official visit to the Air Force Academy.
And we like Mason Thomas.
And we do like Mason Thomas, And so I'm just, for people that were poo-pooing on San Antonio and opportunities to go to Division I, I just think that that's a non-starter because I think you can put yourself in a position that if you have the talent, the work ethic, and the fortunate of being in the right place at the right time, and for me, I talked to one parent a while back, and he asked about why the emphasis on Division I, and I stated because that kind of symbolizes across the state about what cities are producing the most talent. Now, I'm sitting here talking to you today. I don't care if you go Division I, II, III, NAIA, junior college. It's an accomplishment to play in college, and I've been around. Lately, man. I had to reevaluate myself on Division III because I never really gave it the credibility that it deserved, and I apologize for that. I self-reflected on that because what I'm noticing is, man, they got some dudes in San Antonio that just want to be an engineer, and they want to go to the best engineer school and stay home and work with their trainer, through it, and get their name in the rafters, because they built a legacy for themselves, and so, I find that very interesting. And I know that, I tell you what, man, Trinity University, they clean up in the city, man. They got Sean Elliott, not Sean Elliott, I messed his name up, but Sean Tisdale. They got offers out to Corbin Crocker. There's a lot of interest in Jaden Jones, and those are some pretty good names within the city. And what's funny is a couple of those guys I just named, they've got interest all the way from Division I to Division III. Now, think about that for a minute. That's how swervy this landscape is.
If I could just ask you this question, it's from someone in the audience, Brandon Craig.
Yes.
Here's his statement. The only difference between D1 and others is athleticism. They don't care about skills.
Are you talking about they don't care about skills
Yeah.
at the Division I level?
Brandon, if you
No.
could, clear that up for us a little bit, I'd appreciate it because I'm a little stymied uh, there.
Well, no. Brendan's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Brandon's a friend of mine,
Okay.
and because we talk about him and myself talk about the skill levels, right?
Yeah.
And it's truly a big difference whenever you're 6'8", 6'11", and jump out the gym
Mm-hmm.
versus 6'6", 6'9", and can dunk the ball, right? There's a difference in
Yeah.
athleticism. And you know what, man? I the way that some of these schools play, uh, Trinity being one, they were at the forefront of 3-on-3 basketball. I mean, they were. Um, they once knew for strong. All right, so I know what he's talking about now.
Okay, because I'll give you a prime example. I know a guy, he could jump out of the gym, right?
Hmm.
But he had no skill.
Yeah.
You see, and so I'll just take myself and say I had some skills. I was able to do a lot more than that guy that could just jump out of the gym. So I think you need some skills to go along with that in D1. That's
Well, no, and I think
hyper athleticism.
hyper athleticism, yes, but are you strong enough? And so some of these high school kids that are coming out that 2 or 3 years ago uh, they would have taken off of potential. Maybe they don't have the body yet, or maybe they don't have this yet. They don't get that opportunity anymore.
Right.
And so um, then you have, can you defend? Because if you can't defend, they don't have a need for you because they already have premier scorers at the Division I level, even Division
Yeah.
II level. You know.
And I can agree. I see what Brandon just put up there.
Hmm.
D1 talent and Power Fives who have no left, can't shoot, are just a great player with instincts.
Hmm.
I like a great player with instincts
Hmm.
uh, because that means that he can do something specialized for me.
Hmm.
So, uh, okay.
No, so, I mean, I agree. It's frustrating, um, for sure. Whenever you see some of the guys that are there at Division I that are just, I would say, just great rebounders, but I mean,
Right. No, I
but they lack an inside game, or
sure.
some of those 6'10", 6'11" dudes that are shooting from the 4 point line, and but they lack rebounding skills. I like going back to the day with Ben Wallace
Yeah.
and Rodman. That was a skill.
But I'll talk about a pro player. I really like this guy for his defensive intensity. But Jerry Vanderbilt for the Lakers.
Yeah.
This dude is athletic, great defensive prowess, no inside game whatsoever when he's at and under the basket. And let's face it, the outside game isn't there either. But it
Yeah.
amazes me how easy he is to defend one on one around the basket with his athletic ability. So yeah, so much how you can be in the league
Mhm.
having that specific specialty. Yeah.
Mhm. One thing that when we were talking about earlier about questions for parents, right? And then I wanted to work this one in because would you hire someone who shows up late, doesn't really follow instructions, doesn't take care of their body, Well, hell no, you ain't. That's a coach, our college coach at that matter. Because remember, at the end of the day, when they offer you a scholarship, their family depends on you panning out.
Right.
And so they don't get a whole lot of days or years to miss on guys. You know, uh,
Yeah. Kev, the days are good. Look, I've got my son here. He's a really nice kid. Could you work with him and maybe get him show him how to shoot the ball and how to dribble? Those days are long gone.
long ago. You know, and the sad part about it is, man,
But
and
he's not.
we'll just be honest, okay? Because some of those other trainers we're talking about will bring that dude in just as a payer, knowing that dude ain't never gonna
Right.
pan out, and so that's
Yeah.
kind of to think about, But hey, let's jump into this last one, man, because this one's
Mhm.
come up a little bit lately. Uh, Kids playing year round, you know, um, and burnout. Okay, here's my thoughts on that. Okay, my son played baseball, and he played baseball year round, but we understood that baseball for him, he was competing against Latinos, the Dominicans, right? And those guys were getting 1,000 gram balls a week. You know, our our and for him, we took him to training, consistent training, because you almost have to burn somebody out to be able to compete with those guys as much training as they're getting.
Mhm.
And so I kind of feel similarly to because a friend of mine posted, "What's the point of playing AAU basketball after the last live period?" You know, and I looked at it, I thought about it, and I didn't comment on it then. I'm probably not going to comment on it very much now. But why would you stop developing? Why would you stop playing? I mean, if you were in our generation, you were playing in the neighborhood every single day. So that kind of just
Well,
struck me.
yeah, but
You
Kev, you
think
know what
parents?
though? Uh, there there are things to do if you're concerned about burnout, so to speak,
Mhm.
from playing something all around. So much of that can be done by how do you refresh yourself with integrating other things into your life, right? To
Yeah,
take to where it's not just seem like you're on a monotonous grind. Here, guess what? You're over here, be it if it's chess you play, or if you're instead
yeah.
of playing basketball for a while, you're out playing catch with your buddies. You're doing
Mhm.
something to break up that grind. Is how do you, in effect, put something else so it doesn't seem like you're just having your head down, being pragmatic, having tunnel vision on one thing, and it becomes a source of burnout. So I think so much what you interject
Mhm.
for refreshing yourself is vital to that point.
Well, I think about. So I'm gonna say the quote, and then I'm gonna put my question out there. So the quote is from Calvin Sampson, talking about daddies paying for their kids to work cone drills and how that didn't translate into real basketball. Right.
Right.
So my question is, do you think kids actually enjoy basketball, or does it all feel like work? Because all we're talking about is work, work, work. Like, do kids really enjoy going and playing pickup games anymore? And my kids are so far removed, man. I just, I'm at games, but
I
what's
don't even
your
know if
thoughts?
they look. I'm almost like I don't even know if they play pickup ball anymore. That was the thing that
Mhm.
you did every day. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that was the fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted, I mean, let's face it, you wanted to see how you were going to bring it that day against
Yeah.
that other dude.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go ahead and close because we're kind of at that point. But I just want I just want people to remember to go look at Truth in the Trenches, that podcast, because one of the things that's a burning in my pocket right now is social media and recruiting. And we do several podcasts just on that with different professionals in that area. And kids need to know how to DM a coach without sounding desperate. So go ahead, Phil, and then we'll close.
Yeah. Kev, before we go, I just want to say that I think one of the things that you can do in surmising if it's going to be burnout or get you is what's the purpose of you playing basketball?
Yeah.
What's your purpose? Is it to get to that next level to do something, or is it, hey, I can do this pretty good. I just want to have fun, while I'm in high school or whatever, and then I'm going on to do something else. But know your purpose. Why are you there? And I think that's going to go, or should go, a long way into just how you consider this a grind, work, or something fun and interesting for you to do.
And this will be my last point. And talking on my own son, uh, he had several opportunities to go play at small universities, and going into his senior year, he said, "Dad, I'm not going there." He said, "My high school is better than these facilities," and he wasn't being ugly,
Yeah.
just being honest. So you know what? That pressure was off, man. Like we trained, we did all these things, but it wasn't to the same extent that we were before. And I think that just what we're saying right now is just to Brandon's point. There's different levels that kids want to pursue, and there has to be honest conversations between parent and
Right.
child, parent and coach, parent and trainer, coach and player and trainer. So much of that, man, is just really knowing your kid. Don't lie to your kid. You know. But hey, August was a great month. We got the LLC, the business is fully organized now. Um, we had 214,000 impressions on Twitter, which would equal about 6 million uh, in the last 2 weeks. So we're blowing away last year's numbers basically. So we appreciate that. And then I want to have people to share the show. Let people know. Send it. Send it to some people that may not know about it, because these are if you're asking the questions and somebody else is asking the questions. And here's the question of the day. I need you to go and check out the brunch spot, because I wonder how many people have gone out there and supported our sponsors. We're closing. This is the One Eye Scout. It ain't for everybody. And thanks for joining in.